Hey, welcome to our Trick Taking Table. I'm taking off some of these hats because we're covering a game today called Where's Bob's Hat? It's by Alan R. Moon as a part of Moonch, the Moonch month of March. And, you know, first off, hats off to my mom, who probably did the wardrobe for this episode, judging by all the hats she's gotten me over the years. But out of anyone who covers reviews and has hats, I probably have the most hats, the best hats. Did you hear that? Anyway, I even have tailor-made hats. And so I can't think of anyone who reviews board games that has any more hats or better hats than I do. And the hook to Where's Bob's Hat is the players will be getting more and more cards. It's a game where you're dealt more cards per round, kind of like Skull King or Canyon. And the interesting thing is you are bidding on the number of cards and the types of cards that you're trying to take. So maybe you're going to take the most of a certain suit, or maybe you're going to take the fewest tricks overall. So before we go to the table, I just wanted to say one more time, I am the hat person of board game. What is that noise?
Excellent. Excellent.
No way, this is just my closet. Do you hear the birds? And do you think the legends of Card Castle are true?
Excellent.
Shut the door!
The deck in Where's Bob's Hat is made up of 3 suits numbered 1 through 20. The 14 and 15 in each of the 3 suits have Bob's hat in it, which is important for gameplay later. Here we have the game set up for 3 players, so no matter the player count, the whole deck is going to be shuffled and 5 cards are going to be given to everyone for the first hand. And it's one of those games kind of like Skull King or Canyon, where you increase the number of cards dealt each hand. So in the next hand, 6 cards are dealt. Hand after that, 7 cards are dealt. And depending on the player count, you play for a different number of hands. At 3, you play 12, at 4, you play 10, and at 5, you play 8. And in the rules, you can just up or down that number depending on what players want to do or the length of the game you want to play. In addition to the cards, each player is going to have a set of their bid cards, and you're going to have a deck of cards with the 3 suits and a no suit to declare what trump is. That's going to be randomly shuffled by the dealer and flipped. So in this case, it was this pilgrim hat, which would be trump for the round. If this came up, it just means there's no trump for the round. And then there's these, which relate to the 14 and 15 that I explained in the deck makeup, but I'll get into that a little later. After the dealer deals out the cards and the trump suit is determined, the dealer's going to look at their hand and they're going to determine whether you want to collect Bob's hat, where it's worth 10 points, or you don't want to collect Bob's hat, where it's worth minus 10 points. Looking at their hand, they have a fair amount of trump and some high cards. Maybe they want Bob's hat to be good for this round. So they're going to put the positive Bob's hat in the center of the table. Then again, the dealer's going to bid, knowing their hand and using their 4 bidding cards. So everyone has the same 4 bidding cards, and what they denote are whether you think you're going to take the most blue cards out of anyone, black cards, red cards, or you're going to take the fewest total cards no matter the suit. And the bid for most or fewest has to be absolute, no ties. If you tied, you failed your bid. And the interesting thing about this game is you can bid more than 1 card. So say that since Psyduck has a fair amount of trump and they have a high blue and kind of a high red, maybe they think they're going to win not only the most black cards, but also the most blue cards. So they would bid those 2 cards. Then it would go to May here. Coming to May, she knows that the dealer bid both highest amount of cards in trump and highest blue. But she's thinking, you know, I do have 1 trump and I have some high blue. Maybe I won't win trump, but I could possibly win most blue. So they're going to put that down. Coming to the mushroom now, they're looking at their hand and they're like, what are these players talking about? I have a ton of blue, but maybe they have a ton of trump, so I'm a little nervous. Maybe I'll just stick to red, and since they were so confident, I might even go red and fewest cards just to hedge my bets and see how that works. So then The first player will be the dealer, and they'll lead to the trick. Psyduck led blue, and it's a must-follow game. So coming to May's hand, maybe she plays the 19 blue, and then finally coming to the mushroom hand, they play the 13 blue. So the winner of the trick is the highest trump. If there's no trump, it's just highest on the lead. So May will collect this trick and then lead to the next trick. Coming to the mushroom here, they don't have any of the black trump, and I also actually cheated a little bit. I went and grabbed from the deck one of the 14s and 15s just to show an example here. So if you're off suit, you can play whatever card you want. Maybe they play this 15. So how that works is, if a trick has any number of Bob's hat in it, whoever wins that trick is going to collect this card in front of them. So let's say Psyduck followed suit, played their 5 trump, they'd win this trick, they'd collect these, and then this just slides in front of them, kind of like a hot potato situation, where if in the next trick, May were to win a trick that does have any number of Bob's hats in it, this would slide over to her. And whoever has that card at the end of the hand will get either plus 10 points or minus 10 points, depending on which of the Bob's hat cards the dealer picked at the start. Fast forwarding to the end here, the Bob's hat was indeed in front of Psyduck at the end, so they will get 10 points, and then you count everyone's bid. So looking at Psyduck, they said they wanted the most blue and the most black, and looking at their hand, they got 4 and 3. So then they compare with everyone else at the table. So coming over to May, she only won 3, and then coming over to the mushroom, they didn't win any. So it looks like they tied in blue, so that lost them 5 points every missed bid, because if you get tied, you don't make it. Every missed bid is minus 5 points. Every hit bid is positive 5 points, plus the number of cards you took in that suit. So that's minus 5 plus 5, so that's 0, plus 1, 2, 3, 4, plus the 10. So Psyduck got 14 points for this first hand. Coming over to May, she missed hers because she again tied with Psyduck's 3 blue, so she's at minus 5 points. And then coming over to the mushroom here, they got 3 red, Psyduck only got 2, so they did hit their bid, so that's 5 points, plus 1, 2, 3, so that's 8 points so far. They didn't get the fewest total cards though, because both Mushroom and May got 3 cards. So the bid for fewest is interesting. You get positive points if you hit it for the number of cards dealt, and you get minus points if you miss it for the number of cards dealt. So in this first hand, it's just worth positive 5 or minus 5, but later on, when more cards are dealt out in future hands, this bid is more volatile and worth more positive or minus points. So minus 5 plus the 3, Mushroom got 3 points. Then you would gather all the cards, shuffle, you'll deal out 6 cards, the dealer will swap to the next person, who will again determine what trump is, determine if Bob's hat is plus or minus, they bid, then they bid in a circle again, and you keep playing like this, again for desired number of hands or the ideal number. And whoever has the most points wins.
So that's Where's Bob's Hats.
It has some really cool moments. I think there's something to be said where you take bidding and allow players to go nuts if they want to. The whole multiple card bidding is really fascinating, because I've noticed what was cool was sometimes players can bid, take the most of a certain type and then the fewest of another and still hit it. Of course, it's one of those games where since you get more and more cards, you know, Skull King Canyon, the game slowly becomes maybe a little less chaotic, and the first hands are tough to parse because so much is cut out and it's hard to guess if you have a good hand. Like even in that example there, one of the players had pretty high cards, like 17 and 18 or whatever, in certain colors, and they still didn't quite make their bid, or they were very close to even missing it. And so when you get into the later hands, you lose some of that luck. And what's crazy to me, unlike Skull King or Canyon, is in games where you have increasing hand size, usually you do always stick to having a good amount of cards cut out, or at least like some. And at 4 and 5 in this game, you can actually, it's recommended in the rules, you actually stop at perfect information. So it's wild to play the game and slowly move toward perfect information. And maybe this is just a me thing, but I'm always interested in what's good for perfect information, which games need it, which games really shouldn't have it. And it was interesting to have a game that does both. And it was interesting to hit bids more readily as I moved on to perfect information and started being able to card count a little bit and predict a little bit, especially at 3. 3 is really interesting because you get a lot of overlapping bids just because there's only so many people, that if you have a pretty bad hand, you might be like pretty sure that you have the fewest, or if you notice if you're the hammer or if you're the last person on bidding in any player count, I guess, you know so much about how people feel about their hands that you can almost be pretty sure whether you are going to get the fewest or not. It's been interesting to play at 5 because not too many people do the double card bid, whereas in 3 you get a lot of double card bids. And if you're the hammer when both the other players at 3 have double card bid, then you almost are kind of in easy contention for fewest because they're just going to be fighting so much and you know they have a pretty good hand. And fewest can get worth a lot of points. It's kind of like an inherent, I don't want to say catch-up mechanism because it's not really what it is, but I love when games have kind of a, it's not really shoot the moon either, but kind of like a slingshot thing where it's riskier, but if you really pull it off, you can get back into the game pretty quickly. The balance between the dealer having to bid first, but the fact that the dealer gets to pick whether Bob's hat is good or bad is just perfect to me. I think I started off being like, oh, whoa, that 10-point swing of if it's good or bad is tough. But as the dealer, having to bid first, you pretty much, you don't show your hand fully, but you pretty much show everyone what you're thinking. And if you bid as the dealer that you're going to take the fewest, it's kind of a lot of information to get out to the rest of the table that they might be able to take a lot of the suits you don't bid, especially if you only bid fewest. There's a lot more information that's being leaked out to the whole table, as opposed to the subsequent players. They're leaking out to less and less, you know? So it's like a slow information dump as opposed to everyone doing simultaneous bidding, like in Skull King, right, with the yo-ho-hoing. But again, that balance between letting them pick this is super important. It almost tells you a bit of what they have in their hand, right? So if they pick that Bob's hat's good, they might have Bob's hat and trump, or they might have some high cards and they're nervous of being sloughed Bob's hat. But if they don't, they might have a low hand. And so it's cool to see the combination of this declaration for the dealer and their first bid to try to really suss out what's in their hand. So that's Where's His Bob's Hats. It's really fun. It was a huge surprise to me. I don't know if I like it more than Black Spy, just because Black Spy is so hearts, and I love hearts. But as like a bidding game, it had a nice amount of flexibility, it had a ton of choice, and the way the game ramps is super fascinating. As someone who just loves seeing how deck makeup can really impact choices in the game, it was really fun to watch. I'd say it's pretty swingy, and the recommended hand count is probably too long. Just outstays its welcome a little bit. I'd recommend maybe around 6 hands, even no matter the player count, just because it's a bit long. And again, because the points are swingy, like anything more than 6 hands just felt okay. Like one game I was at like minus 15 and the other 2 players were at like 30, 40. It just, a little show in my hand how poorly that game went for me. But the games, because you have, Bob's hat, which can be plus or minus 10, or you have the fact that the fewest bid is number of cards dealt, the scores can just get crazy and out of hand. Is that a pun? I don't know. But yeah, it's a great game though. Yeah, definitely check it out. And thanks so much for watching.